Excellent. So everybody, welcome. Today's topic is disability and employment. And this is being recorded, so I'm going to stick it in the drive after this. And I still have to put our last Disabilities After Dark and this one on YouTube. And they're just really big files, so it's taking me a little bit longer to do that, but it's in the process of being done. So you can find this information on YouTube probably in the next 2 weeks. I'll get it done. But these are just some things that I looked online. I looked at the ADA and I looked at some other resources for people with disabilities, kind of giving tips about disability and some, ways that things can help you with accommodations and how to get those with employment. And then I put together some little things that I use as someone with a disability that works to help me find job opportunities. So I'm going to share those with you guys today, and then we'll have some discussion and etc. So the first slide I have for you guys is with employment. I think that a lot of us in the community, and you guys can comment on this and kind of share your thoughts, but I feel like a lot of us forget that we are allowed to be our own business owners and that we don't necessarily have to go and find someone else to work for. And so this is why I kind of put this kind of together is, do you want to work for yourself or someone else? Do you want to work in your house or on site? What skills do you have that are marketable that you could in turn turn into money or a business? What jobs would you actually enjoy? Like I find it really easy to go to work when I enjoy the work that I do. But, because having a disability, sometimes mental illness and things like depression and anxiety are more common among us, it's important to do things where you get up and enjoy actually going to work and having that job satisfaction. And then what is realistic? I think the most important thing that I sometimes have to remember as a blind woman is that I cannot physically do a lot of jobs. Like as a blind person, I would not be able to drive a car or any, job that involves doing that. I would not be able to be a server in a restaurant because that would be catastrophic. So I have to pick and choose realistically what are things I can do that I know are in line with what my body is capable of letting me do. So what are y'all's thoughts on that? Does anybody have anything?
So I can't speak from just like, so I have diabetes, but being the daughter of someone who is disabled and coming from a different generation, my dad has a rare form of muscular atrophy, and it depended on like his stage of what he could do and what he couldn't do. But like throughout my dad's like sort of political career, it kind of reshaped depending on what was his norm. And so I remember my dad finding businesses that he could do at home when he could set his schedule. Like he got into like repairing appliances, and back in like the 90s, that was a pretty good deal because my brother and I were in school. And so and then he got to like to where he could tinker with like washer and dryers, as long as it was like somebody could pick it up and unload it for him. So I guess I think it depends like what it is that your interest is, and like how can you set your own schedule, because that was huge for him.
Setting your own schedule. Yeah, now that I think about that, yeah, because I'm not awake until before 10 a.m. Lorena, did you have a thought?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to start with like, for me, I guess, I don't have any work experience. So picking out a major was always difficult for me because I didn't really know what to do. And so my art teacher actually encouraged me to do graphic design and marketing. So I have just posted recently about my posters and things like that. So I thought that, I'm glad I found that because it's something that I like to do. And I just hope that it would be a good enough business.
Yeah. I think, that's what you really enjoy doing, and you're amazing at that. Obviously, you would be able to make money, so That's a really great example of something that's like something you could do at home and remote and be in your own space and
Yeah.
kind of be your own boss, you know? So, and I think that we should really encourage all of us in the community to be our own bosses most of the time because I feel like we all have really unique skills that like we know we're good at, but somebody else who might be an employer might look at us and be like, "Are you sure?" You know? So it's like, you know, but you know you're good at what you do. So that's awesome. I'm excited to see how that blossoms for you. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to, like the arts and crafts thing. I wanted to have like, hopefully have like a small store in Statesboro
Yeah,
someday,
yeah,
and like get a bunch of artists that make like design stationery, and hopefully we can get together. But that's just a plan. I mean, I haven't really put anything to work yet, but
yeah.
that was just something I was thinking of doing
Oh yeah,
recently.
that's awesome. That sounds awesome. That would be so cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that would be cool.
I'm trying to love Statesboro.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I hate having to drive all the way to Atlanta just to find like what I like and what I need. Because I mean Hobby Lobby has things, but it's not enough, I guess.
Hmm.
I find most of the things that I like in Atlanta, and so I'm like, well, I'm tired of driving 3 or 4 hours there. Might not have something like that in Statesboro, you know?
Yeah, like a small business craft store. That would be so marketable too, because I feel like we have so many people here who do stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be cool. I would shop there.
Thank you.
Cool. Emily or Kayla, do you guys have any thoughts?
I was just gonna add on to like the trying to like Statesboro thing. I'm from here, and in my 19 years of life, I have not liked this area of town at all. So,
Well, it's changed a lot. I've only been here for 6 years, so I feel like it's changed a lot in that
yeah,
time.
it's slowly changing, thankfully. It's just not.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get there one day. It'll be okay. But I grew up in the city, so I feel like this is all like new to me, the small townness. So I like it because I've lived with the big city vibe for most of my life. But I can understand feeling stuck in a small town.
Yeah, I've lived here too my whole life, and I, mm, I'm kind of glad that you're running for a house. Hopefully, you make some good changes here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Oh, well, we will win.
It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity to create and pioneer and change the level of the playing field for the next generation to have those opportunities.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, my next topic that I have really is job interviews and how to do that. And I know that we've kind of talked in the past about disclosing disability and how that works and whether you should or should not and et cetera. And so I just kind of want to give you guys the legality and what the ADA says on that and how your employer, whenever you have one, is responsible for making sure that you guys have reasonable accommodations for your disability. So disclosing your disability is your choice in an interview. As the person with a disability, you are free to not disclose your disability. However, where it comes to be in your best interest to disclose is when you need accommodations for your job. So if you have a disability where you know you probably won't need accommodations for said job and you don't want to disclose your disability, that's totally cool. But if like someone like me who's sight impaired and I'm working with a computer, or I need special software, or I need to have large print on things, I'm going to need to disclose that disability to my employer before I'm hired so they can prepare to give me those reasonable accommodations. And it gets into the caveats with the fine print of the ADA, and that's kind of where it gets controversial and a little bit disappointing, but it's the definition of reasonable accommodation. So that is the definition of that according to the ADA is any change to the application or hiring process to the job to to the way the job is done or to the work environment that allows a person with a disability who is qualified for the job to perform the essential functions of that job and enjoy equal employment opportunities. So all that means is that your reasonable accommodation means that your experience at that job in that position will be as close to the exact same as someone without a disability. So they're trying to make that experience as equal to you as the person next to you, but not to the point where you are getting an advantage over a non-disabled person. And that's where the reasonable keyword comes in. So, for example, somewhere where you would not be able to claim disability or ADA rights is if, for example, you had something going on and you needed accommodations for X, Y, and Z, and you did not disclose your disability to your employer, and you come across a task or something involving your job that you cannot physically do. At that point, your employer can say, hey, Madeline, you really can't be doing this job. We're going to have to let you go because I didn't disclose that I was visually impaired at the time of employment. My employer is not obligated by law to keep me on the job. So if they find out that you have a disability after you've gotten hired, like when something comes up that you suddenly need accommodations for, your employer can fire you because you chose not to disclose your disability, because that puts a liability on your employer. So it's a little bit like a slippery slope. So I always say it is in your best interest to always disclose a physical or limiting disability of some sort if you think it's going to impede any part of your employment. And this is the fine print, which is what is an individual with a disability and what is essential functions in a job. And this just kind of goes into exactly what, according to the ADA, someone with a disability is. And that is right here. Most important keywords are impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So just because someone claims, oh, I'm disabled, doesn't automatically mean that they are covered with their employment under the ADA. They have to have a doctor's note or, be on disability or something like tangible that they can hand an employer to prove that they have some sort of disability. And I would like to say that more often than not, if you disclose a disability to an employer, they're not going to question you and they're just going to say, okay, yeah, like what do you need us to do for you? Most people are like that, but not everybody is like that. So you want to know what your rights are every time you walk into an employment situation. But at the end of the day, if somebody's giving you a hard time because of your disability, you probably don't want them as an employer anyway. So back to the realistic part of having a job, essential job functions, that's kind of where this comes in. And these are, this is what qualifies you to be hired. So you need to be able to meet essential job functions for a employer to be obligated to hire you. So as a blind person, I cannot meet an essential function that a bus driver needs, for example. Like I cannot legally be a bus driver because I cannot meet the essential function of driving a bus. Therefore, a bus company is not legally obligated to try and hire me. So that's something that I cannot claim ADA accommodation or anything on, if that makes sense. So I think this is set up to be fair for both sides. I think it protects the employer and it protects the person with a disability. And it's realistic. These are resources just for you in general, people for accommodation questions and exactly what the ADA says, and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is right there with phone numbers and their websites. And then the last thing I have for you guys, well, let's back up just a little bit. Does anybody have any questions about this stuff? About essential functions or disclosing or anything? No questions. And this is on the ADA. So you guys can actually Google this, and it's kind of a lot to read. I just kind of pulled out what was important, but it is summarized for you guys. There's some resources. And the last thing I was going to show is how to find some remote work opportunities. And this is how I do it. This is what works for me. There's a lot of different, ways you can find remote work. but this is what I found to be easiest. And just because I'm definitely someone who can't drive, like I need work that I can sit in my living room and do no matter what. So this is what I do. This is how it's done. And I'm going to show you guys. So the first place I recommend looking first, number one, is LinkedIn. And I'm going to show you guys my LinkedIn how I do this. So you go up to jobs. And what's best about LinkedIn is that you can do your search stuff to only show you remote jobs, only jobs that you can apply, like directly sending your resume and are in your area. So let's pretend that I'm not employed and I want to be I'm going to be a social media manager because that's some of the stuff that I do. Okay, so we know that we want it to be part-time, maybe, or full-time. We can select both, but then you come up to on-site or remote and you click remote. Okay. And then what I always do, this is going to show you all of the United States, all remote jobs in the country. So you can sort through, 13,000 hits, or you can come up here and type in, your zip code. So let's do Statesboro just for the sake of the example. And we are going to say that we still want remote jobs that are available for someone who lives in Statesboro. So, these are all jobs. Looks like Amazon's looking for one, and they'll show you Georgia Southern alumni. And so these are all, see, remote jobs. So these are all things that I could apply to that I know are going to be remote, that I do not have to worry about driving, and it's all Zoom. And honestly, with the pandemic, because I've had to look for jobs before Corona and after Corona, and it's much easier to do it now because there's so much more remote work. So that's LinkedIn. I highly recommend LinkedIn. It's really useful. This one's Indeed. Indeed, the exact same thing. Instead of, Statesboro, you can put remote, and, if we can spell it correctly, there we go. And you can search for whatever you need to, work from home. You do work from home, remote, and just find all the possible jobs that people are going to do for, okay, so here you go, all kinds of online jobs. So that's what I do. That's what works for me. And that's my little 411 today. So does anybody have any questions or comments?